It began in chains, cold, clinking restraints, forged not from iron, but from energy fields and genetic locks. The Craxel Dominion came from the stars not with bombs, but with decrees. They saw Earth not as an enemy, but as a mine of labor, biology, and compliant bodies. Our ancestors were taken in waves, across continents, through portals, into orbital slave ships that vanished into the void. The first ones wept. The second ones fought. The third learned silence. And the fourth generation? They remembered everything. The Craxel didn't call it slavery. They used sterile terms. Biological outsourcing. Labor enhancement. Species integration. But our great-grandmothers were forced to bear children on mining moons. Our great-grandfathers died in atmospheric refineries too toxic for Craxel lungs. The humans who remained on Earth lived in enforced ignorance, watched by drones, their skies dimmed by orbital stations. Resistance was fragmented, history rewritten, languages lost. But even caged birds dream of the wind. A woman named Sura was the spark. Raised in a Craxel creche dome on Talviric, she was taught to sort plasma conduits, recite Dominion compliance codes, and obey. But she found a hidden text, smuggled in code through a scavenged maintenance drone. It was a book, fiction even, titled Dreams of Fire. It spoke of rebellion, of burning chains, of humans who refused to bow. She read it in secret. She memorized every word. Then she rewrote it from memory 100 times in hidden corners of the Habdome. Other workers found it, copied it, recited it like scripture. From fire, the idea was reborn. Sura didn't live to see freedom. Her uprising on Talviric was crushed. She and thousands were vented into space, their bodies reduced to statistical anomalies in Dominion records. But her words lived. The Fire Codex, as it came to be called, spread, through maintenance logs, among pilot crews, in the songs hummed by enslaved caretakers to their children. In every system where humans labored, those words became a pulse. A signal. A promise. By the time the Dominion noticed, the sixth generation had already begun training. Not just in secret drills or smuggled weapons, but in knowledge. They learned physics, biology, linguistics, warfare. They built encryption methods using ancient Earth languages the Craxel dismissed as primitive. They mapped the stars with stolen astrogation charts and marked each world where humans still toiled. They became shadows beneath the shining Craxel spires, until the day they stepped into the light with blades of knowledge and vengeance. The first major uprising occurred on Varn's Halo, a ring world that harvested solar plasma from a blue giant. Human engineers rerouted containment fields to form a solar flare, incinerating the Craxel command dome while shielding human workers in magnetic bunkers. The flare was visible across 3 sectors. It was no accident. It was a message: we are awake. The Craxel responded with extermination protocols. Entire human labor populations were marked for containment. They sent dreadships, black and humming with weaponized silence. But this time, humanity didn't run. They had fleets. Not as sleek, not as advanced, but piloted with fury and desperation. Improvised engines. Hulls made from asteroid scrap. Drones reprogrammed to crash into Craxel reactors. For every 10 that fell, 1 broke through. And when it did, it shattered entire destroyers from within. On the moon of Naxos, human scientists detonated an EMP pulse that deactivated thousands of Dominion implants, freeing entire cities of enslaved workers in a heartbeat. On Tard Vellum, human infiltrators posed as medtechs and released a nerve agent engineered to spare human physiology but paralyze Craxel overlords. The uprisings became coordinated. The spark had become a storm. Earth, long forgotten, became a beacon. Freed humans returned, not as refugees, but as liberators. They rebuilt ancient cities, cleared the skies of Dominion satellites, unearthed buried data vaults that held millennia of lost culture. Children were taught not just the history the Craxel erased, but the languages, the songs, the dances, the defiance. They trained in orbital simulators, learned guerrilla strategy and deep space combat alongside literature and art. Earth became the soul of the rebellion. 100 years after Sura's death, her name was spoken across the stars, not as a martyr, but as the mother of victory. Her words were etched into the hulls of human ships. From chains, stars. From fire, flight. The Dominion began to fracture. Craxel governors defected. Some begged for peace. Most resisted and died. The final stronghold was on Craxel Prime itself. A planet-ringed fortress thought impenetrable. The human fleet, forged from 100 liberated systems, arrived in silence. No ultimatum. No negotiation. Just a broadcast from Earth, a recording of Sura reading the dreams of fire, her voice patched together from audio fragments and AI reconstruction. The moment it ended, the humans attacked. It wasn't a clean battle. The Kraxel had centuries of advantage in technology, terrain, and defense. But the humans had rage. Generational rage. A fire passed down in lullabies and code, in whispered prayers and encrypted files. They tunneled through magnetic shields using quantum burrowers designed by teenagers on Europa. They infected Kraxel AI with viral poetry, actual human poems that triggered recursive logic failures. They weaponized love letters, confessions, theater scripts, anything unpredictable, irrational, uniquely human. It worked. Kraxel Prime fell not because it was weak, but because it didn't understand what it faced. Not an enemy army. A resurrection. When the command citadel collapsed, the humans didn't raise a flag. They raised a monument. A spiral of human hands, sculpted from metals mined by ancestors, reaching upward from chains into starlight. At its base, a single word etched in every human tongue, free. The Kraxel survivors weren't slaughtered. They were disarmed, stripped of rank, and brought to stand trial, not in vengeance, but in truth. Human children stood before them and recited names of the stolen. Not to shame, but to ensure the past was never forgotten. The Kraxel, long used to power, were forced to listen. Many wept. Some took their own lives. A few chose to stay and learn. In time, they helped build the new alliance, though always under the eyes of human memory. The freed systems formed the Stellar Accord. Not an empire, not a federation. A promise that no voice would be silenced, that no child would be born with a barcode, that the stars were not for taking, but for tending. Sura's name was among the first spoken at the Accord's founding council. So were the names of the forgotten, thousands recovered from Dominion archives, restored to their rightful places in the family trees of stars. A new generation rose, untouched by shackles, taught not just to fight, but to build. Artists composed symphonies using old radio signals from lost colonies. Engineers built gardens on mining moons. Teachers opened libraries carved into asteroid hulls. And every child was told the same bedtime story, not of monsters under beds, but of ancestors in chains who chose to dream anyway. Humans didn't just survive. They liberated the future. And somewhere in the endless dark, if you listen carefully, you can still hear the echo, not of battle, but of footsteps. The slow, steady march of those who were once enslaved, now walking free, their heads high, their hearts burning, carrying the light of a fire that never died.